She was his brother's girlfriend, until she couldn't resist him. Zarya thought Tyler was the one, handsome, rich, and perfect. But his darkest secret shattered everything. Then there's Daniel, quiet, protective, and impossibly irresistible. Torn between betrayal and forbidden desire, Zarya's heart is about to make the choice of a lifetime. Who will she end up with? Watch the drama unfold and don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment your thoughts below. The late summer sky melted into shades of orange and pink as the sun sank over Lake Winnetka, casting a soft glow on the sprawling Hartman family lake house. The place looked like something out of an architectural magazine. Wraparound porch, gleaming wood deck, and a boathouse down by the dock where a luxury speedboat bobbed lazily in the water. Daniel Hartman leaned against one of the porch pillars, a bottle of sparkling water in his hand, staring out at the lake. At 25, Daniel was the quieter of the two Hartman brothers, tall, broad-shouldered, with tousled dirty blonde hair and a face that always looked like he was thinking 3 steps ahead. His pale blue eyes scanned the horizon, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. Or rather, on someone else. Zarya. She was sitting on the deck steps with her legs tucked to the side, her dark skin glowing under the sunset, a loose yellow sundress brushing over her knees. Her natural curls were pinned up, a few soft coils framing her face. There was something disarming about the way she laughed, light, melodic, as she tried to tell a story. Daniel's brother Tyler was right next to her, but not really with her. Tyler Hartman was the golden boy of the family, tall, athletic, with a cocky smile and a knack for making everyone laugh. Right now, though, he was scrolling on his phone, nodding occasionally, barely paying attention to the woman sitting next to him. "Tyler, are you even listening?" Zarya asked, her voice soft but with an edge of frustration. "Yeah, babe, I hear you. Just checking something real quick," Tyler muttered, still tapping on his phone. Daniel's jaw tightened. It wasn't his place. He knew that. But something about the scene twisted in his chest. Minutes later, Zarya stood, smoothing the skirt of her dress, and started toward the house. Daniel's eyes followed her, before he quickly looked away. She noticed. "Hey, Daniel," she said when she reached the porch steps, her voice polite but warm. "Hey," he said, standing a little straighter. "Need something?" She held up an empty glass. "Just grabbing some water." "I'll get it for you," he offered before she could step inside. Her brows lifted just slightly, but she smiled. "Thanks." Inside, the kitchen gleamed with polished marble counters and chrome fixtures. Daniel filled her glass from the chilled water dispenser, his back to her. "You really don't talk much, do you?" Zarya said, leaning against the counter. He glanced at her over his shoulder. "Guess not." "Why's that?" she asked, tilting her head, curious. Daniel turned and handed her the glass, his fingers brushing hers briefly, and there it was. That flicker of something neither of them could quite name, but both of them felt. "I just don't say much unless I have something to say," he said. Her lips curved into a small smile. "I like that." For a moment the air between them shifted, heavier, somehow charged. Then Tyler's voice carried from outside. "Zarya, you coming?" She blinked, stepping back. "Yeah," she called. Zarya gave Daniel one last look, longer than it needed to be, before turning and heading back outside. When she was gone, Daniel let out a slow breath and set the empty bottle on the counter. He was definitely in trouble. Dinner was loud and full of chatter. The Hartmans had a way of filling every silence with some story or joke. Tyler was in full entertainer mode, holding court at the table. Zarya smiled politely, occasionally chiming in, but Daniel noticed she stayed quiet more than she spoke. At one point, when Zarya tried to share something about her job, Tyler cut her off to tell a funny story about his college days. Everyone laughed. Daniel saw Zarya's small, tight smile and the way her shoulders sank just a little. He wanted to say something, wanted to tell his brother to shut up for 5 seconds, but he stayed quiet. Later that night, the house had gone still. Daniel sat on the front steps, scrolling through his phone, the sound of crickets filling the cool night air. "Hey," Zarya's voice came from behind him. He turned, startled. She was barefoot now, holding her sandals by the straps, her dress fluttering slightly in the breeze. "Hey," he said, putting his phone aside. "Can I sit?" He nodded, shifting over to make space. She sat beside him, pulling her knees up slightly. For a while they just sat there in comfortable silence, staring out at the dark lake. "It's so quiet here," she said finally. "Peaceful. I like it." Daniel nodded. "Yeah. It's different from the city." Zarya hesitated, then sighed softly. "Sometimes I wish things were always this quiet. Tyler, he can be a lot." Daniel's jaw clenched, but he kept his voice even. You guys fight a lot? She gave a small, sad laugh. Sometimes. He's not a bad guy, but he can be, she searched for the right word. Harsh. Controlling. Like everything has to be on his terms. Daniel stared out at the lake. You deserve better than harsh, he said quietly. She turned her head to look at him, her eyes catching the soft glow from the porch light. Maybe, she whispered. For a moment the world went still. Just them, the night, and that quiet, electric tension neither of them acknowledged out loud. Then Zarya stood, brushing off her dress. Good night, Daniel. He watched her disappear inside, every step feeling heavier than the last. When the door clicked shut, Daniel leaned back against the step, exhaling slowly. Yeah, he was in trouble. The next morning started slow. A cool breeze drifted through the lake house, carrying the faint smell of fresh coffee and maple syrup. Daniel was already awake, sitting at the kitchen island with a steaming mug in hand, scrolling through news on his tablet. He wore a faded gray hoodie and shorts, hair slightly tousled. The house was quiet, peaceful, until Zarya padded in. She wore an oversized t-shirt that barely reached mid-thigh and a pair of fuzzy socks. Her curls were loose this morning, framing her face in a soft halo. She froze slightly when she saw Daniel. Morning, he said, his voice calm even. Morning. She smiled, a little shyly, as she made her way to the coffee pot. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. If anything, it felt oddly comfortable. You're up early, she said, glancing over her shoulder as she poured herself coffee. Couldn't sleep, he replied, setting his tablet aside. I like the house when it's quiet like this. She nodded, taking a seat across from him at the island. Same. They sat there for a while, sipping coffee in companionable silence, until the sound of footsteps thundered down the hallway. Tyler burst in, already fully dressed in joggers and a designer hoodie. Babe, we were supposed to leave 20 minutes ago. Why aren't you ready? Zarya blinked, startled. You didn't tell me we had plans this early. I did, Tyler snapped, grabbing a protein bar from the counter. We're meeting the guys for brunch, remember? She frowned. You said brunch. It's 8 a.m. Tyler rolled his eyes. Brunch, breakfast, same thing. Come on, Z. Go get dressed. We're late. Daniel felt his jaw clench as he watched the exchange. Tyler wasn't shouting, but his tone had that sharp edge that always made people scramble to keep up with him. Zarya hesitated, then set her mug down. You go ahead. I'll just stay here. I barely slept last night. Tyler stopped, staring at her like she just said something outrageous. You're kidding, right? You promised you'd come. Tyler, Daniel said finally, his voice calm but firm. If she's tired, let her stay. Tyler turned, eyebrows lifting. Bro, stay out of it. This is between me and my girlfriend. Zarya flinched slightly at the sharpness of his tone. Daniel held Tyler's gaze for a moment, then leaned back in his chair, not saying another word. Fine, Tyler muttered after a long pause. Whatever. Stay. I'll see you later. He stalked out of the kitchen, the door slamming behind him. Zarya let out a slow breath, running her hands over her face. Sorry you had to see that. Daniel shook his head. Don't apologize. He shouldn't talk to you like that. She looked at him, then really looked, her dark eyes searching his face. You always say exactly what you mean, don't you? He held her gaze. Most of the time. She smiled faintly. I like that. The rest of the morning passed quietly. Daniel worked on his laptop in the living room while Zarya curled up on the couch with a book. The sunlight streamed through the windows, bathing the room in gold. At one point, Zarya closed her book and stretched, letting out a soft sigh. You okay? Daniel asked, looking up. She nodded, then shook her head. Just tired? Not from lack of sleep, just tired, you know? Daniel set his laptop aside. Yeah, I know. She hesitated, then said quietly, Tyler can be intense. I thought I liked that at first, but lately it feels like I can't breathe sometimes. Daniel's chest tightened. Then maybe you shouldn't try so hard to keep up with him. Her lips parted slightly, like his words had hit somewhere deep. You make it sound so simple. Sometimes it is. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she smiled softly. You're a good listener, Daniel. He looked away because something about the way she said it, soft, grateful, made his pulse jump. That evening when Tyler came back, his mood was off. They were all sitting on the porch, the sky turning lavender with dusk. Tyler was restless, pacing as he told a story about how one of his friends bailed on brunch. Total waste of my morning, he muttered, running a hand through his hair. And then when I text Zarya to come meet us, she ignores me. I didn't ignore you, Zarya said calmly. I texted you back. I told you I needed rest. Tyler stopped pacing. Yeah. Well, it didn't look like you were resting when I walked in and saw you curled up reading like you didn't have a care in the world. Her face fell slightly. I wasn't hurting anyone, Tyler. Doesn't matter. You promised you'd come. That's what matters. Daniel felt the tension rise like a static charge in the air. Tyler, he said carefully, drop it. Tyler's head snapped toward him. Stay out of it, Dan. Not everything needs your hero complex. Daniel's jaw clenched. I'm not trying to be a hero. I just don't think yelling at her over brunch is worth it. Tyler scoffed but didn't push further. He stormed back inside, leaving a heavy silence behind him. Zarya sat there for a long moment, staring at the lake. Thank you, she said quietly. Daniel turned his head toward her. For what? For being the only one who doesn't make me feel crazy for wanting a little peace. He didn't trust himself to say much, so he just nodded. They sat there together, the porch light casting a soft glow around them. The tension between them was different tonight, closer, warmer, dangerous. And Daniel knew this was only the beginning. The storm came on a Saturday night. The Hartman family had invited a few family friends over for dinner, one of those elegant, picture-perfect lake house dinners with wine glasses clinking and conversation drifting lazily over the table. The dining room was glowing with warm light, laughter bouncing off the high ceilings. Zarya sat between Tyler and Daniel, trying to smile through the unease twisting in her stomach. Everything started fine. Tyler was his usual charming self, telling jokes, making the table laugh. But then someone brought up the topic of careers. So, Zarya, what do you do again? One of the guests asked politely. Zarya sat up a little straighter. I'm an art teacher at an after-school program in the city. Mostly middle school kids. That's adorable, the guest said, smiling, but Daniel caught the condescending tone. Tyler chuckled. Yeah, she's basically a babysitter who paints. The table laughed politely. Zarya's smile faltered. It's a little more than that, she said softly. We help kids who... Tyler cut her off with another joke, louder this time, and the table erupted in laughter again. Daniel's jaw tightened. Zarya tried once more. I was just saying some of the kids are from... Babe, Tyler said, waving a hand, it's not that serious. You don't need to give a TED talk about it. Something inside Zarya went cold. Daniel set his fork down. Let her finish. The table went quiet. Tyler's head snapped toward him. Excuse me? Daniel's voice was calm but firm. You keep cutting her off. Let her talk. For a moment, Tyler just stared at him, shocked that his little brother had challenged him in front of everyone. Then he laughed, short and bitter. Wow. Didn't know you suddenly cared so much about her little art class. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Zarya's cheeks burned with embarrassment. It's fine, she murmured, pushing her chair back. I think I need some air. She left the table, heading for the porch. Daniel followed a minute later, finding her standing at the railing, her arms wrapped around herself. I'm sorry, he said quietly. She turned her head. You don't have anything to be sorry for. He stepped closer but not too close. You okay? She let out a short, humorless laugh. Do I look okay? He just humiliated me in front of everyone. Again. Daniel's chest tightened. You don't deserve that. Zarya's voice trembled. He makes me feel small, Daniel. Like nothing I do is good enough. And I keep telling myself it'll get better, but it doesn't. Daniel's hands curled into fists at his sides. Then maybe it's time to stop waiting for him to change. She looked at him, then really looked, and for a moment the whole world seemed to go quiet. The porch door slammed. Tyler stepped outside, his jaw tight, his expression dark. So this is where you ran off to. Zarya straightened, her shoulders tense. I needed space. You embarrassed me back there, Tyler snapped. Zarya's brows shot up. I embarrassed you? Yes. Tyler stepped closer, his voice rising. You stormed off in the middle of dinner like a child. Do you know how that looked? Daniel moved subtly, positioning himself a little closer to Zarya. Tyler. Back off. Tyler's glare shifted to his brother. What, now you're her bodyguard? You think you get to tell me how to handle my girlfriend? I think you need to calm down, Daniel said evenly, though his voice had a dangerous edge to it. Tyler laughed bitterly. This is unbelievable. No wonder she's so full of herself lately, you keep swooping in like some savior. Zarya flinched. Tyler. You know what? Tyler cut her off, his voice cold now. If you want someone to coddle you and hang on every word, maybe you should be with my brother. He clearly thinks you walk on water. The words landed like a punch. Zarya's eyes widened, her throat tightening. Daniel's blood boiled. That's enough, he said sharply, stepping forward. Tyler smirked, but there was no humor in it. Go ahead, Dan. Take her. She was never really built for me anyway. Zarya's breath caught in her chest. She turned and walked quickly down the porch steps, tears already stinging her eyes. Daniel didn't move. Not until Tyler had gone back inside and slammed the door. Then he went after her. He found her sitting on the dock, her knees pulled to her chest, her dress pooling around her. The moon reflected off the water, casting her in silver light. Zarya, Daniel said softly as he approached. She didn't look up. He really said that. Like I'm some thing he can just toss from one brother to the other. Daniel sat beside her, careful not to crowd her. He was out of line. Her voice broke. Why do I keep letting him make me feel like this? Daniel's heart ached. Because you care. Because you tried. That's not weakness, Zarya. She turned her head toward him, her dark eyes shining with tears. I'm so tired, Daniel. He swallowed hard, every muscle in his body tense. Then let me be here for you. Just for tonight. You don't have to be strong. Something in her expression softened. Slowly she reached out, her fingers brushing against his. Daniel's breath caught. He didn't move closer until she did, until she leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder. And when she finally looked up at him, their faces inches apart, he didn't think. He just acted. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, a question. Then Zarya's hands fisted in his hoodie, pulling him closer, and the kiss deepened, full of everything they'd been holding back. Anger, hurt, longing. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. I shouldn't, Zarya whispered. Neither should I, Daniel said, his forehead resting against hers. But I can't pretend I don't want to. For a moment they just stayed like that, the night wrapping around them, the world holding its breath. And Daniel knew, nothing would ever be the same again. Tyler found out sooner than either of them expected. The next morning, Zarya tried to avoid everyone. She stayed in the guest room, her phone buzzing nonstop with messages from Tyler, apologies, excuses, then accusations. Daniel stayed away at first, giving her space. But by late afternoon he knocked softly on her door. Zarya? Can I come in? Her voice was quiet. Yeah. He stepped inside and found her sitting on the bed, her suitcase half-packed. You're leaving? He asked, a knot forming in his chest. She nodded. I can't stay here. Not after last night. Not after what he said. Daniel sat beside her. You don't have to run away. Her eyes met his. Daniel, if I stay, it's just going to blow up worse. Before he could answer, the door flew open. Tyler stood there, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. So it's true. Zarya froze. Daniel stood quickly. You need to knock. Tyler ignored him, his eyes locked on Zarya. You kissed him. Zarya's hands gripped the blanket. Tyler. Don't. His voice was sharp, venomous. Just don't. How long has this been going on? It just happened, Zarya said, her voice trembling. Last night. Tyler's laugh was bitter. Unbelievable. I knew you were pulling away, but my own brother? Daniel stepped between them. This isn't about me, Tyler. This is about how you've been treating her. Oh, spare me the noble act, Tyler snapped, his face red with anger. You've been circling her like a vulture since the day we brought her home for Christmas. That's not true, Daniel shot back. But I'm not going to stand by while you humiliate her and call it love. Tyler's jaw clenched. You think you're better than me? I think you broke something last night that you can't fix with an apology. Zarya stood then, her voice shaking but firm. Stop. Both men turned to look at her. This isn't about which one of you wins, she said, tears sliding down her cheeks. I loved you, Tyler. I really did. But you don't get to tear me down every time I try to speak. You don't get to make me feel like I'm small just so you can feel big. Tyler's face went pale. Zarya? No, her voice cracked, but she didn't back down. You broke my trust last night. You treated me like I was nothing. And maybe I let it slide too many times before, but not this time. She grabbed the handle of her suitcase. Where are you going? Tyler asked, his voice quieter now, almost desperate. Somewhere I can breathe, she said softly. Tyler's gaze flicked between them, between his girlfriend and his brother, and for a moment, Daniel thought he might hit him. But then Tyler's shoulders slumped, his anger draining into something else entirely, hurt. Fine, Tyler said, his voice hollow. Go. He turned and left the room, slamming the door behind him. The house was quiet when Zarya and Daniel carried her things down to the car. At the door she hesitated. This isn't fair to you, Daniel. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? You didn't ask for this, she said softly. You didn't ask to get caught in the middle. Daniel stepped closer, his voice steady. I'm not caught in the middle, Zarya. I'm choosing to be here. Her throat tightened. You don't even know if this, whatever this is, will work. Maybe not, Daniel admitted. But I know what I felt last night wasn't just a mistake. And I know you deserve someone who actually listens when you talk. Someone who sees you. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Zarya reached up and touched his face, her thumb brushing against his jaw. You really mean that? Daniel's hand closed gently over hers. I do. Her heart hammered in her chest. And then, slowly she nodded. Okay, she whispered. They didn't kiss until she was standing by her car, the lake house behind them, the sky glowing with a soft evening sunset. This kiss wasn't desperate like last night. It was slower, steadier, a promise. When they pulled back, Zarya let out a shaky breath and smiled, the first real smile he'd seen on her face all day. Feels like the first time I can breathe, she said. Daniel smiled back. Then that's all that matters. She got into her car, but before she drove off, she looked at him one last time. You'll call me? She asked. You won't even make it home before I do, Daniel said with a small grin. She laughed softly, then started the engine and drove away. Daniel stayed standing there long after her car disappeared down the road. He knew Tyler would come back eventually, and that their relationship might never be the same again. But as the wind rustled the trees around the lake, Daniel knew he'd done the right thing. And for the first time in years, he felt like he wasn't just living in his brother's shadow anymore. Zarya found her strength. Daniel found his voice. And though the road ahead wouldn't be easy, they both knew, whatever came next, they'd face it together.